Are you thinking to help your children to buy a house? Maybe you're going to contribute to their deposit or give them all of the deposit, or if they're really lucky, you might buy the house lock, stock and barrel for them. Don't do it. The way the law is in this country, we all know our courts have no rhyme or reason whatsoever. You could buy your child a property tomorrow, and in 1 or 2 years, their partner could kick them out of the house that you bought for your own child. The only way to be secure is to ensure that the property is ring fenced. Therefore, I would strongly urge you to consider buying a property on an SPV and renting it to your child instead. This way, the property is ring fenced, you can have an income, but more importantly, you have complete control and flexibility. Children cannot own a property, but they can own shares in a limited company. So if you have grandchildren, you could issue some of the shares in that property to them. You are allowed to give £3,000 a year, up to £3,000 a year, to your children and grandchildren tax free. So with the flexibility of an SPV, you can transfer shares to them at and up to the value of £3,000 every year tax free, but they must be at market value. You can't undervalue those shares to transfer them over. Also, children have the same tax-free allowance as adults. It's just that for the main part, they don't use it and they lose it. So by adding children to the company, by issuing shares to them, they can take a share of the rent, and up to their allowance, it would be tax-free, building up a nest egg for them in the future. Therefore, buying a property under an SPV is not just flexible, it's safe, and it also is a much, much better option if you need an income as compared to equity release. I'm very much against equity release because there are many people out there who are equity rich and cash poor, everyday people whose property that they bought many years ago is now worth quite a bit of money, but they may not have a lot in savings. And these equity release firms prey on them like vultures, but in reality, they give you tens of thousands over the course of your life, but they will take hundreds of thousands from your estate. It would be much more prudent to raise some money against your property and form an SPV and buy a property under that the next day. It doesn't matter how old you are. You could raise the money against your property now, form an SPV today, and tomorrow, subject to having the right deposit, you can buy a house on a buy-to-let mortgage under an SPV. It could be structured so your children own some shares, your grandchildren own some shares, whichever way you wish to structure it, you would have an income, and that money is what's called good debt. It's a covered debt. It is money invested into an appreciating asset. If you do consider something like this, ensure that everything, even down to the rent and the increase in rent, is written down in writing. It could be simply at the official RPI rate every year. It is better to do so because this way you ensure that your children are contributing, which gives them discipline with money management. What you do with that income is your choice. You can distribute it back to your children. They can take a draw from it. Your grandchildren can take a draw. There are many, many options because you will have complete control and all the flexibility that you need. If you are considering something like this, or if it's something that you may be considering after this video, firstly, please get professional advice about the tax implications from an accountant so that you know exactly what you need to do to make sure that you don't inadvertently make yourself liable for tax without realizing when perhaps you may not need to. If you need advice on the financial side of buying a property, whether it's buy to let, residential mortgages, remortgaging, development finance, anything like that. Hopefully from next week, our in-house financial advisor, James, will be joining me once a week to answer your questions on all financial matters. In the meantime, if you do have any questions for James, please feel free to email them to me, Antony@trellos.com, and James will answer your questions when he begins to join me once a week, starting next week, all being well. I hope that this video has been of great help to you. Have a wonderful weekend, and I'll see you next time.